What's going on, draft people? Grump back, more stuff, interior defensive lineman today. Be sure to like and subscribe, whatever, to football_grump for social media, football grump for YouTube. Let's get right into it. These are my interior defensive line rankings. Day one, guys, there's not that many, but probably the best player I have graded in this draft, I think, Jalen Carter, right at the top of the list. I'm not going to spend too much time on him because he's incredible and you all know it. 6'3", 314 pounds. He is athletically gifted. Good height, good weight, really strong muscular build, flexible hips, great speed, great burst. He is athletically perfect. He has a super high motor. His feet are always churning. His hands always working in unison with his feet as well. Just constantly battling offensive linemen, getting them off balance and throwing his strength into them. He is already a superior hand fighter. Plus, he has extra strength that normal mortals don't have at the college level. He works his hands really well, he works them consistently, and he understands how to use leverage to his advantage. As if I could think he could actually improve. He could actually gain some lower body strength. I think it'll help him deal with the double teams that are eventually coming his way and came his way at Georgia anyway. Obviously, the biggest concern has to be maturity level. I know, I guess, as much as anybody else in that he is got a fairly clean character bill other than a very serious racing driving incident that resulted in the death of passengers in the car racing him, not his car. I've heard some silly things like there's NFL senior executives that wouldn't touch him at all. I find that hard to believe. Nevertheless, character is obviously the biggest concern with him. Otherwise, as a player, he is a 3-down defender that's going to be, I think there's a chance that he's the defensive rookie of the year, easily. Following that, quite far from top 3 in the draft, is Bryan Bresee from Clemson, 6'5", 298 pounds. This is super interesting. I really like Bryan Bresee from Clemson. I think that he can develop into something really special. At 6'5", he is more of your like 5 technique, I think, but they can line him up wherever they need to. He needs to gain weight, though. 298 pounds is not going to cut it at 6'5". That's not even really going to cut it at 6 feet. That's a lie. But seriously, at 6'5", I would like to see him closer to like 310, 315. Regardless, physical tools, he's got good arm length, although for 6'5", 32.5-inch arms, kind of oddly short, but still long for the position. His speed is incredible. 4.86 speed is pretty damn good. He's got a really good motor as well. He keeps his feet moving. The speed to close is clearly evident. What he does particularly well is use his arm length to his advantage. And, of course, one arm is always longer than two, so that helps as well. You can extend that advantage as much as you can. He does a really good job of placing his hands. He does a really good job of using leverage to amplify that advantage that he has, and he does a really good job of shedding blockers. He is pretty good at being disruptive and getting in the backfield. At the very least, he frustrates offensive linemen. It's never an easy job blocking Bryan Bresee. Obviously, like I said, 298 pounds is not going to cut it. He needs to eat a little bit. He definitely needs to hit the weight room. 22 rep bench press. You'll hear me say this many times. That's not good enough for me at defensive tackle. It's an important thing to be able to do. Obviously, other things go into strength. 22 reps is, I know people that can do that. I think also he needs to develop some more variety in his pass rush moves, and that'll come with time and understanding his body type and shape. I have him as a pass rush specialist for the first year, probably with, that rotational value with skills to develop further to being a starter down the line. I have him kind of as like a fringe day 1, day 2 guy. Another fringe day 1, day 2 guy that I think other people are higher on than I am is Kalijah Cansey from Pitt. 6'1", 281 pounds, clearly disruptive, don't get me wrong. And I do have him graded as a fringe first-round pick, so this is not any kind of knock on him. But 281 pounds, we're getting pretty light. Regardless, his speed to close is wild. 4.67 40 time is crazy. He has a really good burst off of the line. Relentless feet, relentless motor. he has a really good understanding of hand fighting. He does a really good job of keeping hands off of his body to continue to move forward. Using that in unison to charging forward generally lets you into the backfield. He has really good punches, really active hands. The thing is that when you're a light hand fighter, the way you get to the quarterback is kind of the way he does, which is like he just sort of out of control pinballs around off of linemen, which can be disruptive, but A, it's not going to be that easy at the NFL level, and B, coming in under control and knocking the shit out of people and dictating which way people can escape is more effective at the NFL level with more mobile quarterbacks that can keep eyes downfield, etc. He's going to develop that hand fighting even further. He's going to have to until he gets weight and strength. And I don't know that he's ever going to be too heavy or too strong. I think that quickness is too much a part of his game. Again, this is another guy who's probably going to be a year one rotational pass rusher with that skill set that can be developed beyond that, beyond the depth level. Switching over to day 2, this is a guy that I have borderline fringe day 1, but I think he's probably solid in day 2, and that's Gervon Dexter from Florida. First thing that jumps off the page is 6'6", 310 pounds. This dude is built like an NFL player already, and that's going to be kind of a theme about him. Most of what makes him special is that he's built to play the defensive tackle position. I think he could even play probably like a 5 technique as well. He's just naturally gifted. He just has good natural instincts. I think he understands how to use leverage and length to his advantage without really necessarily knowing what he's doing. He just knows that it works. And he's got that great frame and that great length built into him. Additionally, he is pretty fast. I mean, some of the film is a little bit slow. I'll get into that in a minute, but he runs a 4.88 40. That's pretty quick for a defensive tackle. It's not lightning fast, but he does have a good burst at times. His hands I would describe as active and strong, with like a good motor, but like everything else, not really refined. I do think that his body size and his athleticism allows him to be versatile all along the defensive line, which is obviously a huge advantage to have in a defensive tackle. Refinement is going to be key. So like, as far as I understand it, Gervon Dexter did not really play football growing up. He didn't play football throughout all of high school. He only really played for 2 years in high school, became a recruit darling, wound up at Florida, where he played in 2 different styles of defenses under a different head coach in his final year last year. That kind of was rebuilding things just rebuilding things down. And it leads to some bad tape. It leads to some probably lack of coaching or lack of development, things like that. In this instance, in 2022, Gervon Dexter was double teamed kind of a lot, and you could see it a lot. It made it difficult to pull highlights of him. But, all the little things about just not being a career player at this point in his life, they show up. Like he just needs to work on his hands, work on his leverage. He definitely needs to hit the weight room and get functional strength together. He's clearly a very strong guy, but the 22 bench press reps is not ideal. I would like to see more power from his chest. It will definitely help him in moving guys out of the way. But the fact that he is able to be as productive and toss SEC linemen around while only able to bench press 22 reps goes to show that there is natural strength to him. I just think he understands how to win grappling matches out of instinct. I think if he could get refined into be like a real true brawler, he can be really disruptive at the next level because all the natural stuff is right there. He's, just not refined. He's not a machine right now. The things that concern me, though, there are some things that I don't know if they're going to get better. And the first is very glaring, and it's the biggest weakness he has. He is very slow off the ball. And I don't think that's a speed thing. I don't think it's a motor thing. From the film work, he seems to hustle down plays. He plays to the whistle and through the whistle. He'll just throw offensive linemen even if he's nowhere near the play. But maybe his reaction time is really, truly that slow. It doesn't seem to be that at game speed when it comes to shucking linemen and making tackles, but it is undeniable at the snap that he is the last guy off the ball, and that's got to get corrected because speed is probably the number one thing in the NFL level. I think he's still at the point where he's learning and understanding what he's seeing, so he can be a little bit more reactive than he will be attacking. But again, I think that all comes with the speed of the game kind of thing, him learning. This is a dude that I think day one is rotational, but there's a lot of upside here. So he's definitely one of the guys I think is more interesting to watch because his current path may not see any playing time, but the trajectory is there for him to be a starter. Gervon Dexter out of Florida, one of the most interesting guys. I have him talent-wise graded at the top of day 2. Wake Forest, Kobe Turner, another interesting guy, 6'2", 293 pounds. He's a consistent battler. He's got a really good motor, active hands. He keeps his feet moving. He's got some pretty decent speed. And he's got some good size. It's just like an all-around defensive lineman. He comes from a small school. I think from a skill set standpoint, probably a late day 2 guy. And I'm pretty sure he started at Richmond, moved up to Wake Forest for his final year, and now he's entering the NFL draft. So I think it's just one of those things that he's on a longer trajectory timeline to hitting the NFL. I like what I've seen from him. It's just the natural gifts that other guys have, he doesn't have. He's got to work for it, and he's a hard worker. Mazi Smith from Michigan is a guy I want to like a lot. I have him graded here as a day 2 guy, a little bit after Kobe Turner. Not much, though. 6'3", 323 pounds. This is a different kind of defensive tackle, and we're going to have a couple of them in a row here. This is your nose tackle. This is a 2-down run stuffer with upside. Obviously physically gifted. He's heavy, and he wears it well. The strength is unreal. I don't know if he was the big winner of the bench press, but 34 reps is pretty intense. This is what I want to see from a nose tackle, man. I want to know that if he's getting triple teamed, he's not going flying backwards. He might go backwards, but not quickly. With the huge body and the strength, you can see him throwing linemen in one-on-ones, just absolutely tossing them out of the way. A lot of times you see like the double team stonewall or whatever, or sometimes even just collapsing the pocket, whatever, he just falls over. I think it's just a little bit too much leaning beyond your shoes to kind of get an advantage. He has natural strength that he is not using in these scenarios. If he can get his leverage under control and understand how to use his natural strength, or whatever, his developed strength, I guess, I think you can clear up that balance stuff, and he shoots up my board. Not my problem here is, if he never becomes anything more than a 2-down run stuffer that has balance issues, the value for that on its face is pretty low. I mean, like, that's not really day 2 level. It makes him hard to place. And so, like, I think he's probably better than Kobe Turner is, but the value for Kobe Turner developing is there. Mazi Smith has to be a dominant nose tackle to be considered at the day 2 level where I have him. The same goes for Baylor's Sayaki Ika. 6'3", 335. He's even bigger than Mazi Smith. Huge body, huge strength. He moves so fast for his size. Good motor. He can absolutely just bull rush linemen straight back into the pocket with the size and strength advantage he has at the college level at Baylor. That's not really going to be the case for him going forward. I understand why people are enamored with him, but even at Baylor, he just didn't produce it the way that I would have liked. And I don't mean numbers. I mean, unless it's a one-on-one, he really didn't dominate. He just kind of struggled from that point on. He may not win so many bull rushes at the NFL level. You know, it's just not going to happen. My biggest thing, though, is that for a big guy, his tackling is pretty poor. He kind of fails to consistently wrap up and get people down. I'm not trying to... This is still a day 2 guy, late day 2. I could see him slipping into the 4th round maybe. But right now, there is still more to develop there than I think people realize. It's not like I don't think he'll ever figure it out, but you know, if the tackling doesn't get cleaned up, how good is a 2-down run stuffer really? Moving on to day 3. A couple of guys here. First is Texas's Keandre Coburn, 6'2", 332. Another guy, enormous bodied nose tackle. He's an absolute space eater. Again, another one where a huge over-reliance on his size to win. Now, when I was talking about Sayaki Ika, what we were really talking about were some minor balance issues during engaging blockers. This right here is a true over-reliance on his size. Playing ahead of him, ahead of his shoes, not using his hands. And you can see a lack of strength in an inability to get his hands to latch on to defenders. And, when you're bull rushing or, whatever, you can just see his hands are slipping off. He just doesn't have the grip strength. He doesn't have the forearm strength. I don't think he has a chest strength. This is a 2-down nose tackle that needs to hit the weight room hard. He's worth a day 3 flyer. I think you can develop him, but I don't think you're getting much at all out of him unless it's like, goal line scenarios, special teams, and yeah, I guess, 4th and 2s, 4th and 1s is the only thing you're going to get out of him out of the first year. It's going to be a lot of size that you can't teach, by the way, so it's not a knock, but like, you have to develop the things that you can teach. Zach Pickens from South Carolina, I don't really know whether to classify him as an edge or not. I decided not to. I don't know why. 6'4", 291 pounds. He has some really good length and height, and he has the frame to continue to add strength and weight. He has really good speed. Before 8-9 speed is pretty lightning. He's really smart. I think that's one of the things that jumps off for him. He has a really good motor. He's a good disruptor. He doesn't dominate or anything like that, but he is intelligent. He understands what is happening in front of him. He keeps his vision forward, and he's able to read what's happening and react to it quickly. That's where I think he shines. Obviously, with the speed and, the fact that he's got a good motor and he understands what's going on. He's got that length that he can use to his advantage. That's all the good stuff. The bad stuff is, and I saw him at the Senior Bowl, the strength is not there. 22 reps was the bench press thing, but I mean, really, the play strength is not there. 22 reps does not seem that bad, but he does need to get stronger. It's clear watching him the way he just gets manhandled. He tends to play a little bit above his feet. He's got to get that under control, but I think he'll be able to increase strength, increase some weight, and just a better understanding of using leverage, and I think he'll be fine. So I have him pushed down to day 3. I have seen him mocked all over the place. Going way back to the end of January, I mean, people were raving about him. So I think day 3 is just about right for him, 4th round, something like that. Lastly, but not the lightest, Moro Ojomo from Texas, 6'3", 292 pounds. There's another guy that's going to be kind of like your throwaway pick on measurables. 6'3", 292, good height, good strength, 29 reps of bench press. That's pretty darn good. Now we're talking, man. He's got some decent closing speed. He's got some good burst off the line. I think this is a high upside, good motor player. I think this is someone that's worth taking a flyer on. I think that a lot of his development is going to be understanding the position a little bit more. I think he needs to develop hand fighting. I think he needs to understand how to use his length more. I think he can use leverage better to his advantage. I think that he could learn to use his legs to keep his feet moving at the same time he's using his hands. All those things will move him up from a decent college player to a decent NFL player, I think. I don't think we're ever talking about a guy who's going to break the starting lineup, but I think a guy who is going to be good rundown depth. Well, it's not even rundown depth. That's rundown role. I think that he'll have a rotation if he can develop. But he is kind of a project prospect, and I think that the right team is probably one that's already stacked on the defensive line and has some contracts expiring in 2 years and need him to fill that void potentially. I think that's the right landing place for Moro Ojomo. That's kind of all I've got on interior defensive linemen. I am doing the best I can to wrap up position groups before the draft. So again, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at football_grump, and to subscribe to this YouTube channel, tell friends, etc., so you know when the next one is there. I'll see you guys next time. And of course, I will see you guys on draft night, remember, on the Talkin' Giants YouTube. See you then.